Hello, and welcome back to Behind the Post. Today's guest has spent the last 8 years building her career in social media across a variety of roles and industries, everything from brands to agency, B2C, B2B, and everything in between. She has a passion for bringing brands to life through storytelling and consistently strives to make B2B social media fun and engaging. Currently, you can find her at Körber Supply Chain, a software solutions and automation company, where she leads the global social media strategy. Without further ado, please welcome to the show, Kari Anderson. Kari, are you ready to go behind the post with me?
I'm all set.
Amazing. I'm so thrilled to have you on the show today because I'm not going to lie, I was stalking your LinkedIn profile when I was on my hunt for guests, and one stroll through your profile, I was like, I need to get this woman on the podcast. Your background and experience are so impressive, and I just can't wait to pick your brain. And one thing I love asking my guests is how they actually ended up in the world of social media. So I'd love to know how you got into the industry and how you found yourself at Körber.
Amazing. Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me on the show today. I am an avid listener, so it is a great opportunity to be here with you. So, like you mentioned, my career in social media started about 8 years ago. I actually went to college and graduated with a degree in public relations. And then after college, I ended up getting a job as a social media coordinator at a company called Deluxe.
Okay.
When I applied, I remember thinking that this was a bit outside of what I envisioned my career path being with a degree in PR. But being a millennial and a frequent user of social media, I figured why not give it a shot? And I suppose the rest is history. Here we are 8 years later. I've had a handful of roles, mostly in the B2B space on the corporate and brand side, but I've also dabbled in the agency client side a bit to work with some more B2C brands. And I've been able to really work on everything from influencer relations to thought leadership, paid advertising, to organic strategy, which is where my primary focus is in my current role at Körber Supply Chain, where I run our global social media strategy across our 4 target regions. And there I really specialize just in organic growth, engagement, and I lead some of our key initiatives like social selling, employee advocacy, thought leadership, all of that fun stuff.
Amazing. We're definitely going to dive into social selling and advocacy. I'm so excited to chat about that. And I mentioned in your intro that storytelling is one of your expertises, and it's something that I've been hearing a lot about. I feel like it's kind of everyone's been speaking about it within the past couple of years. And I think, especially in the B2B space, having the skill of brand storytelling is so key. So I would love to know from your perspective, first, what does storytelling mean to you? And then for anyone who is maybe looking to strengthen their storytelling skills, would you have any tips or tricks or how we can oomph our game a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think in the B2B space, it is a little bit trickier to really get into storytelling because sometimes we can be so focused on sales and ROI. That's not always as fun as storytelling, but
Yeah.
I think the B2B space has really started to make this shift, especially over the last couple of years, to go to market in a little bit more of a B2C fashion. So we're starting to see more B2B brands really come to the storytelling forefront. One of the things that I think makes successful storytelling is really trying to just put yourself as the marketer in your audience's shoes. If you're more focused on telling the story from your point of view than your audience's point of view, you're just not going to be as successful as you would normally be. One of the strategy shifts that we've really made at Körber is really shifting that messaging away from here's how we can help you, here's our solutions, to we understand your challenges. We can get to the solutions part later, but a lot of our messaging and our storytelling has really shifted to speak to our customers, really taking that more relatable angle. And it's allowed us to, it's being shown in the proof of our engagement that it is a little bit more successful. We are resonating with our audience. It's that relatability. I think it's one of the key factors.
Yeah, definitely. I think at the end of the day, you have to speak to your audience in a way where they feel seen and heard. And that's how a lot of people, like personal profiles, that's how we show up on social media. And it's all about being social. So when brands speak to their audiences, they also need to mimic it as if it's coming from a person where you're feeling seen, you're feeling heard. And that's where that trust starts to build. And that's right where you want to be. So spot on. I love that.
Absolutely. And that's one of the key pieces that we've really tried to build into both our employee advocacy and our social selling platforms is that trust, that relatability. There's tons of research out there that says that people are so much more likely to trust something if it's coming from a person versus if it's coming from a brand. And so we've really leaned into that research and gone all in on our socials, on our thought leadership to really hit the message from that angle and not just from our brand angle.
Yeah. And I think it's so important because obviously leveraging your employees is such a great way to reach more people. But then you also can't neglect your brand page. So that's where using that language where it sounds like it's almost more human and more authentic, that's where that really comes into play. And especially when you're creating content, obviously you want to get it in front of the right people. And I know for me, a challenge can be making sure my content is in front of the right people and also reaching new audiences. So I would really love to know, how are you doing this? Are you leveraging employee advocacy, or maybe you have a killer hashtag strategy? How are you making sure your content is reaching the right people and reaching new people? Are there certain strategies that you're doing to achieve this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit one of the main ones right away was employee advocacy. Through our employee advocacy program, we're able to really just expand our reach. Their networks then become our networks. So I think that has really helped us. We certainly have branded hashtags like many organizations do. And we do have a hashtag strategy that we follow based on just key network strategies. But I think the main one that is really helping us reach new audiences is that employee advocacy program. And it's allowing us to get in front of, again, their networks, which in turn becomes our network.
Mm-hmm. How are you managing that all? Because I know you mentioned you're a one-person team, and I
Yeah.
know from experience, first of all, just managing social media alone is a full-time job, but then add in employee advocacy, social selling, other things that are going on, because social media managers are not just managing social. I can tell you that. I'm sure
No.
you agree. So how do you balance that as a one-person team? I know for me, like balancing content from different departments is challenging. Employee advocacy, how are you managing all of that as a one-person team?
That's a really good question. Thankfully, I do have a very supportive marketing organization that helps us from all angles. We have an employee base that is very eager to be active on social. So I think that also really helps make the employee advocacy side of things a little bit easier. I will say it doesn't necessarily take anything off of the workload. I'm still a very busy woman. As social media managers, we're strategists, we are designers often. We're analysts, we're doing a lot of the reporting. So it is definitely a challenge. I think I always block focus time on my calendar to make sure that I can dedicate all of the time that I need to all of these different programs. Balancing requests from different departments, I think, can always be tricky too. We have a lot of content, to be honest, and it all can't go out on organic strategies. One of the things that we've done a pretty good job at, I think, and we're honestly still working at perfecting this, is laying down guidelines for the different departments that are requesting these things, like HR, our field teams, our sales teams. We've set pretty clear guidelines on what types of content and what formats of content really work best on organic and what types of content really should be pushed on paid. The other thing that we're trying to juggle is we are a very global company. And so we not only have posts going out in US English during our Workday in North America, but we're also supporting our colleagues over in the EMEA region. We also have regional pages for APAC and LATAM. So we've got some globalization to deal with too. And one of the things when I started at Körber was we really looked at the strategy and there was content overload. We just had too much going out and it was really hurting our engagement. And so that was one of the reasons we put these guidelines in place, because we really did find that less is actually more, less is leading to better engagement. And the way we got to less, so to speak, is by putting these guidelines in place and really leaning into the content that we tested with our audience to see which formats were resonating, which topics are resonating. And that's really allowed us to peel back on that. We have too much content going on right now. So it's working. Like I said, I think we still have a little ways to go. I could do with a little less content on our pages some days,
Yeah.
but we've certainly made strides in that area.
The same thing actually was happening to us, where I actually am curious to know how much content was like too much for you, because for us, we were posting up to 3 times a day and it was crazy. Our
Too
content
much.
was getting
Yeah.
lost in the shuffle. We cut back and our engagements increased, our impressions increased, everything increased
Yeah.
by just cutting back. So like how much content for you was like overload? I'm just curious to know.
Yeah, I would say we were hitting close to the 3 posts a day mark as well, and that for me was too much. I would love to sit around 1 post a day,
Yeah.
especially on LinkedIn. Some days we still hit 2, but again, we're supporting so many regions through our Google page that it does make it impossible to really get down to 1. But yeah, 3 was just too much for us.
Yeah.
Even some days I think I saw 4, and it's not working. Like you said, the engagement, each time you post the next post, the post that went prior, the engagement is just totally put it in the garbage.
And then on the back end of it, like as the social media manager or the community manager, having to reply to the comments and keep up with all the engagements, that's really overwhelming, as well as creating that content, like creating 4 posts per day.
Yes,
That's a lot of content. And then you're also managing all the other networks. So it's a lot.
it is a lot.
Yes. I really want to ask you about certain ways that you are going about like creating the actual content. I know you strive to make B2B social fun and engaging, which I love that because I try to do the same, which it is hard sometimes because sometimes the topics we're talking about aren't like riveting. So I would love to know, how do you go about creating engaging content that also will move the needle and impact the business at the end of the day?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, like a lot of brands and organizations, we've found that leaning into video has been really successful for us. So we've really leaned into our video strategy over the last year. I think the other thing that we've tried to do, especially being in B2B, we have so many white papers and downloadable pieces of content, and that's just wasn't working for us on organic. So we tried to strategize and find ways where instead of giving our audience something that they have to click out and download, how can we just give it to them in the post through either maybe a carousel format or a very quick animation, or again, a short video, maybe from our YouTube page. We've clipped maybe like a customer case study or something like that. Along with the less is more, the shorter is better was also
Yes.
something that we went with on social too. Shorter videos, quicker pieces of content. The attention span is almost non-existent these days
Yeah.
as people are scrolling through their feed. So our main goal with creating content that's engaging our audience isn't only is it going to engage them, but how quickly is it going to engage them? Because if it doesn't within the first, I think is it 3 seconds now, or has the research updated? It might be shorter.
It's probably shorter, to be honest. I love that you said that because that is something that I've been really trying to do over the past couple of months, is make our brand page more of a destination rather than flooding our audience with links to webinars and the website and third-party articles, because we're on social again to be social and connect with other people, and we don't want to be leaving. And I don't think LinkedIn has come out and said this, but there have been a lot of algorithm reports that say that the posts with links just don't do as well because LinkedIn wants to keep people on the site for as long as possible. So something that I've been doing is creating carousels and, blog posts. Like there's so much good insights in blog posts, but how can we make it shorter and make it snackable and just have everything that our audience needs on our page so that they don't have to go somewhere else to get that information? And that has really helped us. And I think it is also hard because as social media managers, we do still want to provide traffic to the website and get people onto the website. But I think it all comes down to balance. And when you create that community on your page and create a presence that people want to be a part of, then you can start to balance the content, and then people will want to actually go see that other content you have on the website. So I think it's about balancing that content and just having a very diverse content playlist. I think that's really key.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And one of the ways we've also tried to balance that content, if you will, is like I said, making sure that our paid strategy supports our organic strategy. So it's not that we're not giving our target audience the white papers, the downloadable infographics, all of those sort of sales funnel leads that we're looking to get as a B2B organization. It's where are they getting that content? And
Yeah.
when people are scrolling through their news feeds, that's truly just not always what they're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that I noticed about the Körber LinkedIn page is you guys have really good engagement. And I know, especially now, like, again, people just they trust people more than they trust brands. And I think we've already covered it a little bit, but I wanted to ask if you have any tips for growing a brand page because you guys do get really good engagement, which is hard to see on brand pages. And I know sharing the more like videos and snackable content probably really helps. But do you have any other tips for growing a brand page? And if social media managers want to earn a little bit more engagement and just make their content that more, just more creative and engaging, what tips would you have for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That is a wonderful compliment to receive, especially as a B2B social media manager, because we all know how difficult quality engagement actually can be to get.
Yes.
I think one of the things we've done to really support our engagement strategy with our growth strategy was sort of build this halo around our social channels. So we actually started our social channels 2.5 years ago, so we're fairly new
Oh
to
my
this
gosh.
space. Yeah, we're pretty new,
Wow.
all things considered. So when I started, one of our main goals from the leadership team was obviously growth. We needed to grow the page because it was brand new. But along with that growth strategy, I wanted to make sure that we weren't only prioritizing page and follower growth, that we were also prioritizing community growth and we weren't leaving engagement behind. We've all seen pages that have thousands and thousands of followers with little to no engagement. That certainly wasn't our
Yeah.
goal. And so to do that and to bring the engagement along with us, we first obviously wanted to build out a strong organic strategy. And to do that, we did a lot of testing, again, with the content, what's resonating, what's not only topics, but formats. And then next, we wanted to explore what other networks we had that could help feed the funnel for social. So our main goal was really to create this sort of halo effect around our social channels. And to do that, we started programs like our social selling program, which fed into our main channel, our employee advocacy program, which is an expansion of our social selling program. It just really impacts a larger portion of the business. That's also feeding into our social channels. That's helping us really foster that community with not only our employees, but their networks as well. And then this year, we're really looking to expand that with more of a thought leadership and influencer angle. So I guess my advice would be when we're looking at engagement, it's not only the content necessarily that you're posting, you want to obviously prioritize that, but it's also what other funnels do you have that are feeding traffic back to your social pages that can really help boost that engagement and build that community.
That is so smart because it's not just about that brand page. You have to go elsewhere. And I really want to talk about the social selling program because I also saw this on your LinkedIn profile and I was blown away by it. So, first, what was the vision behind it? And why do you personally think it is so important to have your sales team participate in something like social selling?
Yeah, absolutely. The concept of social selling has really been around for years, but honestly, when the pandemic hit, our sales teams were almost forced to go into this more virtual world of selling. For a lot of them, they've been doing this for over a decade or longer. And so the concept of social media was really new to them. They're very
Mhm.
used to selling the way that they go to market. So, being a B2B organization, it was really important for us to make sure that we were training our sales organization on the best practices when it comes to social media, making sure they have all of the tools that they need to really effectively go to market. And
Yeah.
The sales cycle isn't linear. So it often takes several touch points to move a prospect just to a marketing qualified lead, not even to the sales funnel. It was really important to us that we were giving them every opportunity to get in front of new business. And one of those key touch points in today's world really truly is social media. It's not just one post here and there, it's really several. We not only train our teams on the best practices around social selling, but we also really preach consistency because that truly is the key to being a successful modern seller.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm really curious, did you dive into the personal branding side as well? Because I know that is super important, not only just pushing company content, obviously, but having that personal brand to it as well. So did you also go around the best practices of that too?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually did a workshop at one of our QBRs where I put together a worksheet for everyone to fill out. And it was a 3-step worksheet on give me some ideas of what you're passionate about, give me why you consider yourself an expert in these 3 areas. And it helped them really start to think about what they could be talking about. That's one of the questions I get a lot of times from our sales team is, I just don't really know what I should be posting. So this worksheet really got them thinking about, okay, I'm passionate about area A, B, and C. Here's why I'm an expert. I could absolutely craft a social post on this once or twice a week for my sales team. And that's also why we really started our employee advocacy program and brought on a tool to help them with that so that we could help craft that content, lead them along in that direction until they were comfortable with posting and writing their own content.
Yeah, I love that. And I am collaborating with my teammate. Right now, we're doing a quarter two contest for advocacy, and we want to really dive in on personal branding and creating your content pillars. So I am definitely going to steal that worksheet idea because that is so smart. Because it's so hard. And sometimes I forget because I love social media. I've been doing this for several years and I forget that people aren't as excited and comfortable on social
Yeah.
media than I am, so that's a really good kind of process to walk through and get them thinking because it's intimidating if you're not someone that's already posting on social.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I'm with you. I often forget that not everyone lives and breathes in the
Yeah.
world of social media. So even when I'm explaining things to my team about why this content is better than this content, I sometimes have to take a step back and really break down the why. It can't just be
Yeah.
all about the data and the metrics and all of these things. So,
Yeah. Gotta get back to the basics.
yes.
Well, Carrie, we are nearing the end of the show here, and I have one final question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, what is one thing you wish your colleagues in other departments knew about working in social media?
Oh, that's a good one. I will say just be cognizant of your social media manager's schedule, I think. We talked about this a little bit in the beginning of the show, but a lot of us really do it all, or at least try to do it all. We are strategists, we are executing on the strategy, we're designers when we need to be, we're analyzing the data. And then outside of just social, we're usually doing other non social projects too.
Yep.
Just keeping that in mind that your social media manager is a busy guy or gal, and we will absolutely get back to you when we can.
Yes,
And
I
the
love
other
that.
thing too, I think the other thing too would be building sort of a trust with your social media manager. I think, especially if that person has been in the field for quite a while, there's a lot of times where we will say, this does work or this doesn't work, and we often get pushback. I promise you, we're almost always coming from a place of experience and we know why, just leaning in on the trust a little bit.
Yes, 100%. Because you wouldn't tell a developer how they should do their job. So it's funny that a lot of people think that just because they're on social media or they have a Twitter account, they think that they know how to run a social media strategy. So, yes, I totally agree. One of the daily struggles.
Right?
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I loved having you on. I love this episode, and I am taking so much away from this. I know our audience will too. So, thank you so much for joining us on Behind the Post.
Amazing. Thank you for having me. And if there are any questions, anyone can feel free to follow up too.
Amazing. Thank you.